Good afternoon. Welcome back to another edition of the B&H Virtual Event Space. Natalie Napoleon joining us for part 3. Natalie, I feel like I hear like the Boys to Men song, the old song "End of the Road" playing in the background. It's so sad. We're finally reached part 3.
I know. I
But
was thinking that yesterday too.
no, this has been an incredibly fun series. I love the direction you've gone with this. Obviously, for those who haven't tapped in, we're going to drop a link for parts 1 and 2 in the comment section. A special welcome to those of you joining us again on YouTube Live and, of course, Vimeo and Facebook live stream, and, of course, everybody right here on Zoom. So we'll drop those links for you guys if you haven't caught up. But we're talking product photography. Natalie has done wonders with the phone, and, of course, she's going to answer any questions you guys have. So feel free to drop them in. But part 3, size matters, coming up now. Natalie, I'm going to kick it over to you, and we'll see you in a bit for some Q&A.
All right, fantastic. Well, thank you again for having me. I'm really excited for this session. I think this is a part of product photography that shop owners don't necessarily know how to handle, because you take so many pictures with your phone, and then just the sheer size of the collection or your camera, your camera roll on your phone is overwhelming. So I want to go through some options. A lot of shop owners aren't creatives. They're not professional photographers. They don't even have an easy way to manage their day-to-day pictures. So this can even help you manage your day-to-day pictures if you're interested in doing something like that. So I'm going to share my screen, and then we can get into it. Let me just move our faces out of the way so I can close this Zoom screen. All right, so let's talk about culling all of your images. I'm going to show you how to cull your images on your phone, and then I'll show you how to take that over to your desktop if you want to cull images and edit images on your desktop. So I'm going to share my phone screen here. And we'll take a look. Oh, and of course now, even though I tested it right before we started, there is a plugin. Okay, so here we go. All right. All right, so the first thing that you want to do is download Adobe Lightroom from the App Store. So let's go take a look in the App Store so you can see what this looks like. In the first session, I showed you how to photograph your products using your phone, and then how to edit your products using the native camera app. Today, we're going to talk about Adobe Lightroom, using Adobe Lightroom to edit our photos. So right here, you can see the very first option up at the top, Lightroom Photo and Video Editor. This is Lightroom Mobile. Lightroom Mobile does have a free version, or you can upgrade and pay $10 a month to have access to Adobe Lightroom Classic as well for your desktop, as well as some more functionality on your phone. So either way is absolutely fine. But let's go first and look at how we can cull all of our images. So I just opened up Adobe Lightroom. Once you download Adobe Lightroom, it will ask you if you already have a login. So go ahead and log in if you do. If you don't, you can create a sign-in. If you don't have Adobe Lightroom and you just want to try it out and see if you like it, you can download a 7-day free trial for the paid version. But again, Lightroom Mobile does have a free version that you can add to your phone. It just doesn't have as much capability as the paid version. When you open up Lightroom, it will ask you some questions. Do you want to add all of your photos from your camera roll? Where do you want to access location information? Questions like that. I like to allow it to access location information because if I'm not on top of my game and I haven't taken the time to organize my photographs and I want to see some photographs that I've taken in a specific location, I can just type in that location and it'll pull those images for me. So I do like to share my location with Lightroom for that reason. When you look at the screen, when you open up Lightroom, at the very top, you'll see all of the photos. Those are all of the photos on your camera roll on your phone. Below that, you'll see albums. These are albums that I've created, and I will show you how to create your own albums. Down at the bottom of the screen, you'll see 4 icons. The first is the library icon. This takes you right into this library that we're looking at right now. If you click on the shared icon, this will take you into a screen that shows you all of the images that you've shared with other people. You can click on the learn icon and you can learn how to use Adobe Lightroom. Or if you're looking for some inspiration, you can click the discover icon and look through other people's photographs. So let's go back to the library look. Down at the bottom of this page, you see this blue pill-like button. On the left-hand side is a picture of a picture with the plus sign. If you click on that, you can import photos into Lightroom from your camera roll, from files. If you have your laptop and your computer synced to iCloud, for example, then you can pull photos from those files. You can also attach a camera to your phone and you can pull photos from a memory card directly into your phone. On the right-hand side, you see the camera icon. So you can click on the camera icon and then you can use the camera right within Lightroom to take pictures. What's nice about using the camera in Lightroom is that you have a little more, you have more of a manual approach here. So you can change your exposure, you can change your ISO, your white balance, all of that. So if you're photographing a fabric swatch, for example, for your brand, and you're having trouble achieving those real colors using your camera app on your phone, the native camera app, open up Lightroom and try manually adjusting the settings, and that can help you achieve true color when you're trying to photograph something like a color swatch. All right, so the first thing I want to do is pull all of the images in that I photographed on my phone. So in the first session, we spent some time photographing a functional product, and we wanted to put it in a lifestyle scene. So it was a dental toothpaste, a dental paste, a CBD dental paste. And so instead of just photographing it on white, we put it into a bathroom scene to make it look like this is where your customer is going to be using this product, an aspirational type of scene. But for this particular session, I'm going to be showing you some photographs of some supplements. So I'll show you how to do that. So the first thing I want to do is I want to click on the plus. If you look where it says albums right underneath of library, and then look all the way to the right, you'll see a plus button. Hit the plus button, and then down at the bottom, you'll see options to create new album or folder. So we're going to create a new album. I'm going to call this album supplements. And then I'm going to hit OK. Then I'm going to hit the three dots to the right of the new album I just created, and I'll see down at the bottom a list of different options. I want to add photos. So I'm going to hit add photos, and I'm going to choose from camera roll. Now I'm going to choose up at the top here, these supplement pictures. Now you can do this a few ways. It depends on the type of phone you have and the functionality of your phone. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to press on one of the photos and I'm just going to slide my finger over the rest. So that's going to pick up all of those photos and add them into my album. Now I'm going to open that supplement album, and you can see all of my photos have been pulled into this album. This is a brain dump, essentially a photo dump. I'm just pulling everything that I shot right into this album. Then what I can do is I can look through them and just quickly, it doesn't have to be a major decision. I'm just basically looking at the form and the composition and the lighting. I'm not looking too closely at the details at this point. Once I make my final choices, then I'll go through and I'll zoom in and look closely, make sure everything is in focus and the colors look all right. There isn't any chromatic aberration, which is some type of color that comes in around, an unwanted color that'll come in around a product from the light. So what I want to do is just quickly look through, and let's say this is one image that I really like. So I'm going to click up on the top. You see a box with an arrow pointing up. So I'm going to click on that, and then I'm going to, I'm sorry, let me see here. Click on that, and then I'm going to save this, export as, I'm sorry. Now I'm having a little stage fright. Forgot what to do here. Hang on one second. I'm going to look and I'm going to add it to another. Here we go. organize. I'm going to add it to another album. So I'm going to
Natalie,
click on these.
we are not seeing the Lightroom screen. I still have the
Oh,
browser screen up. I wanted to make sure we weren't
oh,
off on that. Now, sometimes what you may want to try is pull down the shared screen and reinitiate. Sometimes Zoom is a little finicky
sure.
like that.
Okay, let's try this again. All right. All right, so stop
Zoom
the
must have been
share.
listening to our green room conversation, all those bad things I was saying.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe Zoom itself has Zoom fatigue.
There we go.
All right.
And I'll give you a confirmation once we.
Okay. Can you see Lightroom?
No, it's still hung up.
Okay, so you're just seeing the home screen on my phone?
Right now it's just letting us know that you have started screen sharing, but we're not seeing the actual screen share. Try pulling it down one more time. We'll see if third time's a charm.
All right, so stop the share. I can also grab a cord. Let me try with the cord. Maybe that will help. So, all right.
For everyone out there watching, I jinxed Natalie. I'm going to take full blame for this.
No. It could also, I wonder, have something to do with the plugin that it asked for.
There we go.
You can see this now. Okay,
Lightroom
fantastic.
library? Yep. We got the phone library up right now.
Okay. So you didn't see the creation of the album or anything like that?
Yeah. So yeah, if you could back up just to that.
Yeah, no problem. All right, I'm just going to delete the album that I created and we'll start from the beginning. Okay. So basically, this is your library, your Lightroom library. So when you open up Lightroom, this is the first thing that you're going to see. Now, what we want to do is we want to create an album of all of the photographs that we've taken with our phone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for the word album underneath of the library section, and I'm going to look all the way to the right and click on that plus sign. When I click on the plus sign down at the very bottom of the screen, I see options to create a new album or a new folder. I'm going to create a new album. I'm going to title this Supplements. Okay. Now I'm going to click on the three dots to the right of Supplements, and I'm going to choose Add Photos. And I want to add them from my camera roll. Now I'm going to look at my camera roll, and all of the pictures that I've taken should be all together because I've taken them all in one session. And what I'm going to do, because my phone supports this feature, yours may or may not, you may have to click on each one individually. I'm able to press on one image and then just slide my finger over all of the images to pull them into the album. So I'm going to click on one and then just slide over all of those images. And then I'm going to hit Add. And that's going to add them into the supplement folder. This is just a photo dump. This is every single image that I've taken during my entire session. I'm going to go through and I'm going to look at them very quickly. So I'm going to open up this album. I'm just going to scroll through, look very quickly, and I'm just going to make my decisions based on these images at this size. I'm looking at the form, I'm looking at the composition, I'm looking at the light. I'm not looking at the details right now. Once I make that first edit, then I'll go in and I'll look at all the details and make sure that everything is in focus, make sure that everything looks spot on. But for right now, I'm just going to look quickly and I'm just going to say, so let's pretend we're going to use one of these images for our hero image on our Shopify site. So a hero image is the very first image at the very top of the page. And typically it's a horizontal type of image. So let's pick a horizontal image. I'm going to look at these images here down at the bottom because the hero image tends to be very narrow. And so I know that I'm going to have to crop some of my image. I'm going to have to crop some of the top or maybe some of the bottom. If you've ever looked at someone's Shopify site and saw that they have a weird crop, it's because they didn't take into account the crop when they were shooting. So A, always shoot more than you need. So step back from the scene and leave negative space around the top, around the bottom, on the sides. That will give you flexibility to crop your images down. So if you need to use it for a horizontal hero image, or if you want to crop it into a square for Instagram, for example, you have that latitude there. If you come in too close, then you're going to end up with weird crops on your pictures. So I'm just going to pick this second one right here, and I want to add it to a new album. So I'm going to click on the 3 dots in the circle, in the white circle up in the upper right-hand corner, and I'm going to click on Organize. And I'm going to click on Add To. And I'm going to, hang on a second here, I need to make a new album. Add to, oh, here we go, album, and you're gonna hit on the plus sign. And then I'm gonna create a new album. So I'm gonna title this Supplements, and I'm going to call it Edit, Supplements Edit. Okay, what I'll do is once I add all of my photographs, I'll go through all of them and I'll just add a bunch into this first edit, and then I'll go through a second time. I'm not going to do it here just in the interest of time, but what I would do is once I've done that first edit, then I would open up each picture and look at each picture very carefully before I move on. And if I don't feel that it deserves to be in the edited folder, I'll just delete it from the edited folder. All right, so I'm going to add it here to the supplements folder, and we have it added to the supplements folder. Now, if you want to do this on your computer, I'm going to stop the share with my phone and I'm going to share my computer screen. Okay, so there are 2 ways that you can do this on your desktop. You can either use the Lightroom mobile version here on your computer. Now, I've been using Lightroom for quite some time, so my brain doesn't necessarily like this version. So I'll come in here every once in a while and I'll take a look just to see how it looks, because I like how they're able to organize the images. But when I'm editing my photographs, I like to work in Lightroom Classic, which is the original version of Adobe Lightroom. Now, to sync Adobe Lightroom Classic to your phone, you're going to click on this cloud up in the upper right-hand corner. You can see mine's working on syncing everything, make sure everyone's talking to each other. And then what happens is when I look here on the left-hand side, I'm actually going to quit it and then open it back up again so that you can see what I just did. Just move our faces out of the way. So what will happen once I open it is I will see that folder that I just created. Okay, so I'm going to scroll down a little bit more, and here from Lightroom, it's not pulling it in. It's that kind of day, I suppose. So what I do is I look at collections and then I go down to Lightroom and I click down from Lightroom, and eventually it will pull in. So it'll pull in the folder automatically that I've created on my phone, and I'll see it here in Adobe Lightroom Classic. I can also see it here in the Lightroom mobile version of the desktop app. So either way, whatever works better for you, you can see here on the left-hand side, it's already pulled it in here to this version. This is a little bit quicker. So it's already pulled all these images in, and then I can go here to Supplements Edit, so I can see everything on my desktop that I did on my phone. All right, so now let's go back into the phone and talk a little bit about editing the photographs themselves. So I'm going to share my screen again. I'm going to go back to my phone. Can you see my phone here?
Yes, we can. Yep.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to open up my edited folder and I'm going to look at my image. I'm going to open it up, click on it. This is the point where I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to make sure that everything looks good. I've zoomed in a lot, so it does look a little bit out of focus because I've zoomed in a lot. But for the most part, I think this image is going to work. Now, when we went through the first session, I showed you how to edit on the phone using the native camera app. You can do the same type of thing here in Adobe Lightroom. You have a little more functionality in Adobe Lightroom than you do in the native camera app. And then once you get into Adobe Lightroom Classic, you have even more functionality on your desktop. So I'm going to hit presets to begin. So these are brand beautiful presets. These are my presets, and we can drop a link for you. You're welcome to download these. I've created these specifically for product-based business owners so that when you're adding a filter to your product, it maintains the natural color of your products, because that's really one of the main concerns when you're selling a product. You want to make sure that whatever type of adjustments you're adding to your image, you're not changing the color of the product itself. If you change the color of the product itself, that's going to increase returns and negative reviews on your shop. And that's the last thing that you want. So make sure whatever you do, you keep your product nearby. So I always keep my product right next to me. So while I'm editing, I can confirm that the colors are consistent. So you can add different presets. You can go through and try to add different presets. Now, if you want to see what the photograph looked like before you added a preset, all you have to do is put your finger on the image and then hold it, and you'll see the before. And then when you let go, you'll see the after. Once you've chosen your preset and you're happy, you can hit on the check button here. I'm going to X out here because I want to show you another way to do this manually. Another way to do it manually is to go into each one of the icons down at the bottom of the screen here. So you can see light, color, effects, detail. Now, these are all very fun to play with, but keep in mind, you are photographing real products that people are expecting to look exactly like what they'll look like in person. So don't go too crazy with color saturation or your filters or anything like that. Try to maintain as much of a true to life color as you possibly can. So what you'll do is you can click on the light to begin. I typically don't change my exposure until the very end. I look through and I'll work with my highlights. Maybe I'll pull my highlights down a little bit. I'll open my shadows up a little bit. I'll check and see if I need to add a little bit of white. The best way to see what any of these sliders does is to drag it to one extreme and then to the other extreme. So now let's take a look at the blacks. Let's do that with the blacks. I typically pull the blacks down a little bit, but let's pull them down all the way. So you can see how it really darkens the image. And then I want to pull them all the way to the right and then see how it changes that. So this will give you a good gauge, a good starting point as to how you want to adjust your images. So I'm just going to pull the blacks down just a little bit. I might give it a little bit of contrast. The exposure looks okay on this particular image, but maybe I'll pull it down just a little bit because I am losing some detail in the back. That's a pillow and a bed in the back, so maybe I'll pull it down. Then you see it made it look a little muddy, so maybe I'll pull the highlights back up because I do want it to be very clean and white and create an ambiance that is inviting and welcoming, because this is a sleep support supplement. And so I've put it in this scene in the bedroom that creates a situation, a lifestyle type of situation, an environmental situation where my buyer can envision themselves taking this particular supplement. So when you're creating your scenes, think about who your customer is and what are the things that they like to do and what are the situations that they'll be using their products in. Color, you want to look here. You want to be very careful when you're looking at color. So I'm not going to go extreme one way or the other. When I'm looking at color, I'm thinking more about my branding. So am I more of a contemporary brand? Am I more of a traditional brand? If I'm more of a contemporary brand, then I might add a little bit of blue to the scene. So just to make the light a little bit colder. If I'm more of a traditional brand, then I might add a little bit of yellow to the scene and warm it up. Make sure that whenever you add these settings to any of your photographs, that you maintain consistency across your entire collection, because if you have one photograph with blue light and then one photograph with yellow light, there's going to be a disconnect. And your customer, when they land on your site, they're not necessarily going to be able to verbalize what that disconnect is, but they'll feel it. And a lot of times it's because the color temperature on the photographs is inconsistent. So make sure that you write down what your settings are if you're playing around with this in Lightroom Mobile. You're not able to save your presets in Lightroom Mobile. However, you can save them in Lightroom Classic. What you can do in Lightroom Mobile is, if I had two pictures here in this folder and I was going to scroll to the next photograph, and I wanted to add the same settings that I added to the first photograph, as long as the photographs are sequential, I can come down to this bottom menu and I can choose previous. Then I can hit adjustments and it will apply all of the adjustments that I added to that preceding photograph to the photograph I'm working on, minus any types of crops. If I want to add a crop to the photograph as well, then I would choose all. That would include the crop that I added to the previous photograph. So then you can play with things like details and optics. So chromatic aberration, what happens when you have chromatic aberration is that the light coming into the scene will create a strange color around your product. So you can turn that on to remove any color chromatic aberration, and then you can also turn on the lens correction to adjust for any images, any issues that you have with the lens. If you're shooting with a wide angle lens, for example, it'll distort. So any distortions, it'll correct. And if you want to see what you've done so far, again, you just press on the image, hold it down, you'll see what it looked like before, and then let go, you'll see what it looked like after. So I'm going to exit out of here. I'm not going to save any of that for now. And now let's go back to the desktop version and take a look at how to do that in the desktop version. So here is my Lightroom Classic, and it is not pulling everything in. So let's take a look at the images like this. I'm just going to move our faces again. Okay, so here's this image. So what I'll do when I'm in Lightroom Classic on my desktop is I will hit the develop module, and then here on the left-hand side, you'll see any presets that I've saved, and here on the right-hand side, you'll see an area where I can manually adjust. And it's pretty much exactly the same as it is on the phone. I can adjust exposure, I can adjust highlights, contrast, shadows, all of that. So let's just add a little bit of contrast here, add some black. Let's open up some of the shadows. Let's pull some of the highlights down. Let's add a little bit of white, and then maybe I'll just add a touch of exposure because I actually took that down. Okay, so maybe I'll add a little bit of clarity if I want to make it a little bit sharper. Then I tend not to play around with saturation because, again, I want to maintain true color on the product. I really love the tone curve. So you can play around here with the tone curve. This right here is called the histogram. So this will show you where your dark areas are, where your light areas are, and you can pull them out right here. So here you can see I'm opening up the dark areas a little bit. And if I want to pull the light areas down, I can pull right over here in the midtones. So this is my favorite way to adjust, and then maybe I'll come back and make some slight adjustments. Color, again, be very careful with the color. You can add colors to the images, but you don't want to overdo it. So be very careful if you decide to add any color. This particular image happened to come out of the camera just right, so I'm not going to add any color adjustments to this particular image. You can also add color adjustments here specifically to the midtones. So if you watch, I could pull it up and I'm adding some yellow. Again, you want to look back at your style guide or your brand book, make sure that you're staying in line with your brand as well as staying consistent with the coloring on the product itself. So these are different ways to play around with all the light. So once I've done this and I've created a preset that I really like, what I can do is come to the left side of the panel, and to the right of presets, you see a plus button. I'm going to hit the plus button and I want to create a preset. So I'm going to name this Size Matters just so that we know, and I want to add it to a group. So I'm going to make a new group and I'll say B&H series, create Size Matters, and hit create. And then when you look here on the left-hand side, you'll see that it's created a folder, and then I have my settings in that folder, my preset. If you decide to add one of these presets that I'm giving you, or if you add someone else's preset, know that you can always go back into the settings and it's going to look funny because I added those presets, but you can always go into the settings and adjust the settings of the saved preset. So that's an option for you as well. All right, so now I want to go to Shopify. So let's take a look at the phone again. There's a, okay. So if you're in a hurry, you can most certainly upload your photographs directly to your Shopify site using your phone. Now, I suggest that this is really in the case of an emergency, because, are you able to see my phone? Let me know if not. I just got a message.
Yeah, we can see.
Okay.
Yeah, we can see.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I'm going to go to Shopify. So you just download the Shopify app. And then once Shopify opens up, then you can, here we go. Down at the bottom, you see all of these icons: home, orders, products, store. So this is just a trial that I created just so you can see the mechanics of the entire process. So I'm going to hit on store right here, and then I'm going to go to my online store. Now, I have downloaded a trial for a paid theme. If you're in Shopify, I tend to like the paid themes a little bit better because they give me a little more functionality and a little more freedom when I'm trying to design a shop. So I'm going to hit Manage Themes. And this particular theme is called the Artisan theme. So when you scroll down, you can see your theme library, Artisan. I'm going to hit Customize. Now, down at the very bottom of the screen, you'll see the word Sections with a gray line above it. Pull that up, and you'll see all the sections and where you can add images. So we're going to start here with the slideshow. And just as a side note, it's better not to use a slideshow in your hero image. So this is the slideshow here is the hero image. It's the very first image anyone's going to see when they come to your site. The reason you don't want to use a slideshow is because it will slow your site down. And you have less than a blink of an eye to capture that audience. So if your site is slow and it doesn't load quickly enough, then your customer, your potential buyer, is going to jump right off the site. So my advice would be not to use the slideshow and just to use one static image in that location. But you can see here, okay, so those are the, here we go, slideshow showcase, that's for an image. So now you can see here, I have options to upload an image that's specifically for desktop, and then I have an option to upload an image that's specifically for mobile. And underneath of those boxes, you'll see the specs. So they're recommending an image of 1800 pixels by 1000 pixels. I recommend that you crop your image before you upload it into Shopify. Otherwise, you're letting Shopify make these decisions for you. And then what happens is you get these weird crops and you can't really see what it is that you need your customer to see. So what I do is I look here, all right, image 1800 by 1000 pixels. So the long edge is 1800 pixels. So let's go back into Lightroom Mobile. I'm going to open my image and I'm going to hit the crop. And then I'm going to keep it here. I'm just going to keep it as original, which is the perspective is 3x2. And then I'm going to hit check, and then I'm going to hit the box up on the very top of the screen with the arrow pointing up. And I'm going to choose the option at the very bottom that says export as, and then in really small type, it says choose file type, sizing, and more. So I'll choose that. And now this is where I can enter in my dimensions. Let me back up for a second here, because I actually want to show you. So let's crop this the way that we want to see it. So I'm going to choose custom crop, and I'm just going to pull this down a little bit like so, because I want to make sure that my product is right in the center of that image. So I'm going to hit the check button. Now I'm going to hit that square button with the arrow pointing up. I'm going to choose export as, and in small type it says choose file type, sizing, and more. I want to export it as a JPEG. The other options are TIFF, DNG. TIFF is going to be too large for Shopify's DNG. I'm not sure that they even support DNG. So JPEG is your best option in this particular case. Now, dimensions, I'm going to choose custom. Now, remember when we went into Shopify and we looked at the specs, it told us that that long edge was 1800 pixels long. So here I'm going to add 1800 pixels. What happens is when people don't adjust this, the pixel ratio here, then Shopify will adjust it for you. So if I were to have chosen that 1024 pixel length, long edge length, then Shopify would expand my photograph and enlarge my photograph and make it look really pixelated. And that is absolutely not what I want, particularly because this is the very first image that my shopper is going to see when they land on my site. So I want to control every single aspect of this image to make sure that it looks the best it possibly can. And then here, image quality. At this point, I'm really kind of guessing. It's hard to tell. So I might choose 60% because I don't want to lose too much quality in the photograph, but I don't know for sure. So it's a little bit of a guessing game on the phone. When you're on the computer, you have a little more capability here of deciding how you want that to look, what size you want it to be. So then you can click on more options if you want to name it something, if you want it to export it in a different color space. I typically don't play around with this right here. And then I'll just hit the check button and it will export the image, and I want to export it to my camera roll. So I'm just going to hit save image in that menu that just opened up. I'm going to go back to Shopify. And now I'm going to go back to that hero image section. I'm going to hit select image, and I want to upload the image, and I want to look at my photo library. And here's that last image, and I'll hit add. All right, and that's what I want, select. And there we go, we have the image. Now let's look at the computer. And let's go here into Adobe Lightroom. So I'm going to reset this image, the color on the image, and I'm going to move our faces out of the way. Okay, so now here I am in the develop module. I want to crop this image. So I'm going to hit the crop, or the shortcut key is R. And here on the right-hand side, in the tool panel, I see original. I'm going to choose custom. And then I'm going to enter custom. So remember when we saw that we could adjust it, we could choose 1800. So that's what we want to do here. And then it was 1800 by 1000, I think it was. Okay. I think I'm doing image ratio here is what's happening. Okay. All right, so now I can see exactly what I want here. And now I want to go back to the library, and I want to export the image here. So I'm just going to export it to my desktop, choose and this is what it's called. And then I'm going to scroll down. So here you can see, I'm going to go back for a second because I don't like how I did that. So I'm going to hit undo. I'm just going to undo until I get back to the original image. Okay. Now I want to crop it. And I'm just going to crop it custom. Oops, I did it again. 18 by 10. Okay. All right. Now we're going to go to the library panel and we're going to hit export. And then I'm going to save it to the desktop. I'm going to keep the name the way that it is. For naming conventions, I typically like to always put the date in the front of the file name. That way I can very easily search it either by the date, or I like to be very specific with what it is that I'm shooting. I would put in a client name here as well, so I can search the client name. And then I like to keep the original file number in the file as well, in the event that I, for whatever reason, have to go back and find the original file. Then here, what I want to do is I want to resize it to fit for my long edge, 1800 pixels. I want to limit my file size to 800K because I want to make sure that my file is as small as possible so it's not slowing my site down in any way. And then I'll hit export. Okay, continue. And then what I'll do next is I'll go to a site called TinyPNG and I'll take this image. So if Lightroom, for whatever reason, what just happened was that a panel opened up and said that if it can't shrink it to the size that I want it to be shrunk, then it won't shrink it. So then sometimes I have to go back and choose a different size for it, but it did work for this particular file. So I'm just going to take this file and I'm going to take it and drag it into TinyPNG, and then TinyPNG will compress it even more. So now I know for sure that I have the smallest size possible. So I'll just download that image, and then I'll go into Shopify here and I will hit customize. And on the left-hand side, so on my screen right now, you're seeing this panel on the left-hand side because of the size of my screen. Occasionally it will show up on the right side in Shopify if you have a larger screen, but I'm on my laptop, so it's on the left-hand side. So I'm going to go to that slideshow image here, and then I'm going to select the image, upload, and I'm just going to take it from my downloads. I'm going to check and see what it was called, and it was the date. So I'm going to look for 2022, 07/22. Here it is. And then I'm going to open it and upload it, select, and there I have it. So of course, you want to make sure that you're looking at the template and that there aren't any words or designs over your product. So that will require a little bit of time. But most importantly, when you're working on your Shopify site, what you want to do is you want to create an image map. There are a couple of ways that you can do this. This is what I did for a client. I just created a Google Sheets file, and I went through every single section and told her exactly what she was going to need. So in the address bar, there's a favicon. A favicon is 16 by 16 pixels. A header where she has to put her logo, 600 by 200 pixels. This way, when you're going through and adding images to your Shopify site, you know exactly what the dimensions are and how big they are, how to size them for the site. What you can also do is use this software, which is super fun, and I just discovered it and I'm addicted to it, and I'm showing it to everyone. This is called Milanote. This allows you to organize your entire life. You can map your shop right here in Milano. And Milano has given me a promo code to share with you for 50% off of the subscription for up to 2 years or until you cancel, whichever happens to come first. I think that the regular subscription is, I think it's 120 a year. And then with this 50% discount, it's 60 a year. So you can do so many things in this software. You can plan your shoot. So you can see here, I'll go back and show you what I've done for clients. So you can create a photo brief, you can create a photo plan, you can create a shot list. So you can create a lot here in the software. But let's go back to this particular board here. So I'm going to open up this Shopify image map. All I did was pull a board over into here, and it's empty right now, but you can see they have different templates in this software. And I'm just going to move our faces again. Okay, so you can add different types of templates into the software. If you choose to use a template, the easiest way to do it is to click this button here at the bottom that says keep example content, and then hit use this template, and it'll keep all of the example content for you. But I don't want to do that. I'm just going to pull over a column. So I'm going to call this my header column, and then I'm going to pull over another column, and I'm going to call this my, let's go back to my image map. So I missed the address bar, my slideshow for my desktop. So slideshow desktop, make sure that you pay attention to the specs for the desktop and for the mobile versions of your site, because occasionally there will be different specs. So you'll want to create a version of your photograph that is appropriate for the desktop, and then a version that is appropriate for mobile. Then what I can do here is I can actually upload the picture. So let's just take that picture that I just downloaded, and I can just pull it right into here. So you can see I can add all of my photographs into these columns. I can click on here and I can put a caption. So I can say that this is 800 by 1800 by 1000 pixels. So I can really keep a map of everything that I have going on in my shop right here. And I can know in the future if I need to change any of these images out, what the dimensions are, and why I would have to change them. So that's pretty much it. So I just want to check in and see if anybody has any questions.
Yes, we are going to get it going. Thank you so much again, Natalie. We're going to start it with a question on lens choice or zooming. Obviously not lens choice here, but on certain phones, there is a lens choice. So Jesse joining us on YouTube does have the Sony Xperia, which does have that lens, which offers a difference between a 70 millimeter or 105. So obviously not everybody out there has an Xperia, but when zooming in, I know it's a little different on certain phones, but once you get into that digital zoom, the quality's not as great. But do you recommend where people should be? I know some people will kind of use a little hack to switch the iPhone into portrait mode and get a little, and it's not just for the blurred background, it's also for that little bit of faux compression.
Right. Yeah, so you have to be really careful, particularly with the portrait mode, because it does tend to distort the product itself. So you have to remember, when someone's looking at an image, they're not necessarily looking at it so closely that they're going to see all of the imperfections, unless the imperfections are absolutely jarring. So if you can find a way to zoom in a way that isn't obviously creating any type of aberration or distortion, and it's tricking the eye and tricking the mind, then you could be okay. However, I typically try not to zoom. What I do instead is set up my scene in a way where I'm creating that separation manually. So I'll put my product closer to the phone, and then maybe I'll put my set way back. So I'm leaving a lot of space between the product and the background. And that will allow for me to create some type of a faux compression as well, without having to zoom into it. So if possible, I would say try to avoid the zoom. Another option for you is to go into Lightroom or Photoshop. They've just introduced a new function where you can select the foreground and the background, or your subject and the background, and then you can adjust them separately. So you can mask the background and then you can blur the background right in Photoshop or right in Lightroom, rather than shooting it in the camera that way. That way you have, if you're shooting it in the camera so that everything is sharp, you have that information to go back to later. If you shoot it in portrait mode, for example, on an iPhone, or if you zoom in on your Sony Xperia, then you don't have that information to adjust later in Photoshop or Lightroom. Although I am a big fan of shooting it correctly to begin with, but I wouldn't want you to lose any information.
Okay, that's a great point. It's so funny. It's like I think sometimes we've gotten so reliant upon the technology, and especially with product, you have the ability to a lot of the product you're working on a small space. It's like using
Right.
miniature, right? You can play and like, wow, wait, I didn't even think about that. It's all about how close the product is to the camera in relation to the background and to any of the
Right.
background elements. That's an interesting way to put that. I'm glad we got that asked, Jesse, because I wouldn't have even thought about that. We have another question from Lane joining us on YouTube. Says, hi there. I recently started product photos. I missed the minimum file size settings.
The minimum file size settings.
File size. So is there anything that you have for minimum file size, or any let's say best practices? And of course, Lane, we will have this archived so you can go back and reference that. But is there any best practices you have for minimum file sizes, or any territory you don't want to go into?
Yeah. So I would say, and I'm speaking specifically to Shopify because that's the platform I work in. Specifically in terms of Shopify, minimum I would say would be 1200 pixels. I like to keep it around 600 to 800 kilobytes, really without losing too much information. Even then, I can see that there is some information that's been lost. But again, the customer isn't always seeing that. And oftentimes customers are shopping on their phones. So the speed is more important than the quality, although I hate to say that, but the speed of the site is more important than the quality. And they're not always professional photographers, so they're not always going to see the minutia and the detail. So I would say try to keep it at the long edge, at least 1200 pixels. But most importantly, look in the theme for that specific Shopify theme that you're using, and they will give you the specs for each single image that you have to upload, and follow their specs. So for example, the header image that we just uploaded, they required a minimum length of 1800 pixels for the long edge. And then I always choose, when I'm exporting from Lightroom Classic, I choose 800 kilobytes to export at 800 kilobytes, depending on how much information is in the file. So darker images, for example, hold more information than lighter images. I might not be able to bring it down to 800 kilobytes. So what I'll do is maybe try 1000 or 1200, and then I'll take it into tiny PNG, and then let tiny PNG reduce the file for me.
Perfect. Now, before our next question, I want to give a shout out to our next viewer, Bossy. Bossy, this is Bossy's third time. He's been here for the entire series. So
Awesome.
get the gold star, like we're back in school, and you get the participation award. So Bossy, a huge shout out to you for joining us for all three parts of these, and to anybody else who has joined. I think we've gotten a wealth of information here. But Bossy has a really good question. How realistic is it to have presets considering strict adherence to client colors and the fact that the client requests might be a little peculiar at times?
Well, you can have presets for a specific client. So what I'll do is I'll create folders for each of my clients, preset folders for each of my clients, and then I'll just use them as starting points, and then I'll adjust them. But quite honestly, there are times where I just manually adjust every single photograph because I know that the presets aren't going to work. So you have to take it on a case-by-case basis. If there's a particular product or scene that you know will work with a preset, then use the preset. Or you can just use the preset and then adjust the preset, or you can manually create the adjustments on each particular image. But you'll get to know, once you start to work with the same clients over and over again, what their requirements are, what the specs are for the colors and whatnot. And then you'll be able to create presets specifically for that client.
So you're taking it more or less on a case-by-case basis. Some clients aren't really they're going to be a little more demanding. Some clients are going to be a little more hands-off and let you kind of do your thing.
Right. It depends on their personalities. It depends on the size of their company. The larger companies will have more specs that you need to follow because they have a larger team, or they've been in business for quite some time. So they have more of an understanding of what they need out of a photograph, whereas the smaller brands might just be getting off the floor. And so for them, it's not necessarily important to maintain true color, although you should always work to maintain true color because that will help them with their returns. They might just not even realize that they need that at some point. So you can create their style guide for them. And then once you have those parameters, then you can just follow those parameters for that particular client.
Yeah, it's a tricky world right now. Like, we've gotten so into filters and color grading and making things stylized that some of that stuff you have to dance a fine line between where do you need color correction? When can you bend the rules on color correction? And it's hard to get super stylized without falling into proper color. So it's kind of an interesting place we're at.
Yeah, there's a florist here in my town who uses filters on all of her photographs, and it makes the colors look off, very off. And they look so off that my daughter refuses, even though her arrangements are beautiful, my daughter refuses to buy any of her arrangements from this particular florist because of the filter she uses on her Instagram photos and on her website.
I mean, it just goes to show that it's not for everybody. Some people live and die by it, and some people are really, really put off by it. And especially when you get into business, I think it's something where there's kind of two applications you're talking about in this series. And one of them is like the client aspect and doing work for clients. And the other is, obviously, there's going to be people who sell stuff online, whether it's through Etsy, Shopify, whatever, eBay, Facebook Marketplace, who they have a different market. They have a different set of demands and needs. And you might be able to get away with having a more stylized image and selling your image through very vibrant, soft imagery, where that's not going to work in a retail space.
Right. And that also needs to be taken into consideration in terms of styling. So are your photographs too editorial, or do they need to be more lifestyle? So, and of course, that depends on your style and the type of client you want to work and the type of images you want to create. But you need to make sure that there isn't a disconnect between the type of work you're creating and what the client is expecting. So that's why you want to go backwards and create, if they don't have a style guide already, create a style guide for that client and include examples in the style guide for them so that they can understand fully how to communicate what they need to you.
Mm-hmm. Now, I see we did have some questions coming in on more specific examples. So we did drop part one. I think part one is where we really went into, like, I think it was Bossy, if I remember correctly, that asked about shooting a pair of sneakers.
Right.
So Jesse, if you're still watching now, you had dropped a question in regarding taking a photo of something like headphones. And I think Natalie did a great job in part one of breaking down that for each product is going to have its own separate vibe and its own environment and kind of a feel. And then with a product like headphones, as anything else, it's going to be, are you shooting a picture of headphones because you're selling a pair that you have on eBay? Or are you taking a product photo of headphones in more of an e-com way for a brand? Have I been paying attention to your series?
Yes, that's very good. You're hired. Yes. So when you're photographing a product, first you need to ask your client, where they're going to be selling this particular product. If they're selling it on their website, then you want more of a lifestyle type of an image, because this website is your client's digital real estate. This is their real opportunity to tell their customers their brand story, and then underneath of the umbrella of the brand story, the product story. And so you want to create an aspirational type of image that really pulls the customer in, because like I said, you have less than a blink of an eye to tell the customer what it is you're selling, why they need it, and then justify that decision for them logistically in less than a second. And so the best way to do that is with a lifestyle or an environmental photograph. So when I'm working with a client, I like to give them all images if possible, if it's within their budget. I think we talked a little bit about budget in one of the sessions, in the first session as well. So if they're on a limited budget, they're a small brand, they're going to be using these photographs on their website, then you can give them an environmental photograph. So take those headphones and maybe put them in a setting like a living room, for example, on the coffee table, maybe on top of like a record or something like that, or a book or anything like that, some type of situation that implies that it's a real situation. A customer just took these headphones off and put them down if you can't get people in your photograph. So put it in a scene that the customer can relate to. Then the next step up would be a lifestyle type of image with people. So maybe you have a person sitting on the couch listening to the headphones and closing their eyes and enjoying it, or maybe they're sitting outside. It all comes back to the customer profile. So ask your client for their style guide, and also ask them for a customer profile. Who is their target audience? How old are they? What are the books they like to read? What are the magazines they like to read? What are the websites they like to visit? What are the activities they like to do? So I have another supplement client that I'm shooting for, and right now he has a great conversion rate on his website because he's extremely authentic, and his supplements are just research backed. I don't know all the terms. I'm an artist, so biochemical. There's a lot of biochemistry going on in there. But anyway, so he has a great conversion rate, but he needs to attract a different type of audience. So his primary supplement is an osteoporosis supplement, but he now wants to attract the younger 45 and up audience, so that eventually they'll buy their osteoporosis. So we need to think of ways to place these supplements in a scene that can speak to that person. So maybe this is a person, so this particular supplement helps with stamina, mental stamina, and energy. So maybe this particular person wants more stamina because they want to go for a longer bike ride. So maybe what I would do is put this bottle on the ground, on the street, and then have bike tires behind the bottle. And then if there isn't budget to hire a model, I'll just use my own foot, and I'll put my own foot down on the ground on the bike shoe behind the supplement. So really think about what the customer's or the client's first priority is. And then if they're selling on Amazon or Google, for example, then those shots need to be on white. So look at the platform as well and read through all the guidelines for the platform, because Amazon will punish vendors who submit lifestyle photographs versus photographs on white. They can still include lifestyle photographs in their overall collection of images on Amazon, but the first images have to be products on white.
Interesting. I didn't know that. Wow. Ton of great information here. And remember, everybody, we're all consumers in some way, shape, or form. Think about the images that you like when you see of a product. What turns you off? We've all been on eBay, we've all been on e-com sites. You look at a listing, and some of them you're like, ew, and it's because of the image. So think about what we like, because at the end of the day, we're not just photographers. We all are consumers of all the things that we see out there on the internet. So Natalie, I want to thank you. This is just a wonderful series. I did take note that you're you know your way around Lightroom pretty well. So don't be surprised if I pop back up in your inbox and like, come on, you gotta show us a few things about Lightroom.
I would love to. Thank you for
Wonderful.
asking. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, we would love to have you back. I know our viewers feel the same way. And a huge thank you to everybody who joined us out there on live on YouTube for this 3-part series, also Vimeo live stream, Facebook as well, and right here home on Zoom. And for those of you who got questions in, we thank you for doing so. We love the engagement. We do this for you all out there in the interwebs. So continue to keep the engagement up. And Natalie, remind us one more time where we can find more of your work.
Yeah, absolutely. You can go to my website, natalienapoleon.com, or you can follow me on Instagram, natalie.napoleon.
Boom. There. You guys have it there. Huge thank you again to Natalie and all our viewers. That's it. All we have for now. Another edition of